heartening to see that so many of you care so strongly about the feelings of others. Not my feelings or those of the creative community, of course, but somebody's. And it gives one a warm cockle feeling, and cooked cockles are delicious. Let's take a look in the mailbag. Ethan of Washed Up, Georgia, writes, I think it's really disingenuous to invoke the phrase mob mentality, as though it's somehow more applicable to criticism of Game of Thrones than to the dogpiling happening to people like Sadie Doyle and Anita Sarkeesian. Well, Ethan, let's see whether talking about dogpiling is justified, shall we, as we go through the rest of the mailbag. Charles of Wannabe, Ellis County, Illinois, writes, Nobody understands poor grim Jim, you oppressed white male blogger, you. If only they understood what it was like to be you, and all the dogpile of people far stupider who don't have your insight, your wisdom, such a cross you bear, being the smartest dude in the room. Ah, such wit. To be preceded, of course, by the word fuck. Chuckles, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have no idea what it's like. Being smart enough not to use misandrist and racist language, for example? Incomprehensible. Good thing both of us are far too clever for that, eh? I'd hate to undermine my own position like that. Heidi of Queef, Alabama, tells us, Fuck you, you fucking fuck. Well, Heidi, sorry to disappoint you, but I'm taken. But please, do keep talking dirty. Oh my. Kim from Self-Righteous, Minnesota, says, Grats, jackass! You've achieved a place on my list of jackasses I will actively avoid giving money to. Great reuse of the word jackass there. There are people in the world who go around just giving money to people? Why was I not informed? I've been working for a living. I'll be donating the spare capital letters you used to text us anonymous, by the way. Cameron Hurley of Timbuktu says, she says a lot of things, but it amounts to, you can imagine dragons, why not a place of sweetness and light and rainbows? Because stories thrive on conflict, Cameron, and even the Care Bears had villains. The more fantastical elements you bring into a story, the more that I feel you need to ground other areas of the story in the familiar. Otherwise you lose people. Jay, from the Institute for Confirmation Bias, also says a lot of things, but amongst them is this gem. If your artistic judgment around this issue is poor, then yes, you're contributing to the sum total of evil in the world. Yes, Jay apparently genuinely believes that if your aesthetic taste runs counter to theirs, it's evil. I don't quite know what to say about that, other than bollocks. Speaking of bollocks, I'd be tempted to agree with the whole evil art thing when it comes to Maplethorpe or avocado bathrooms from the 70s, but I'm grown up enough to know that that's my personal subjective opinion and that there's no such thing as subjective evil. There's objective evil. Jay goes on to claim that they spent 10 years studying this sort of thing and they do recognise the difference between reality and fantasy shortly before contradicting themselves. While we're making spurious, unconfirmable claims on the internet, I hold 12 degrees and have a foot-long cock that spits fire. Jim of Derpington, Somerset, takes the time to tell me that, by not responding to Mighty God King, I'm engaging in a weak cop-out that weakens your argument and strengthens his. If you don't have the courage to respond to criticism of your position, don't bother making the argument in the first place. Oh, well, Jim, I view this in much the same way that Richard Dawkins views debating over his unwillingness to debate William Lane Craig. It would legitimise the other person's bullshit and treat it with far more respect than it actually deserves. Through bitter experience, I've found that anyone who includes trigger warnings or employs the term privilege in an argument is almost certainly not worth engaging in debate, because they're not interested in a debate. Mary, or Marie, of Umtonshire, comments on the inclusion of the swan image at the top of the blog. I'm glad you brought it up, Mary, whichever. I chose that image for two reasons. One, it's an example of rape as a mythic trope, and secondly, that image was included in an art gallery exhibition and censored for depicting bestiality. Some people have no respect for the classics, and that underlines the point I knew would come up about subjective personal taste. Point underlined, I trust. Drivel, writing from Coxton, takes time out of their busy schedule to inform us that, what kind of person likes this post? There's a one-word answer for that. It begins with R. I'm guessing they mean rapist. I would say reasonable human being. And they say nobody gets called a rapist for discussing these things. Thanks for stepping up to the plate and proving them wrong, Drivel. Nice one. Breast of Upper Cheston goes even further and says, you clearly hate women to want to see rape at every juncture of your entertainment. How long before the fiction, film and game isn't enough for you? Let me know so I can ring the police. Thanks, Breast. I don't think drivel was quite extreme and obvious enough. You certainly came to the rescue and showed us all that the fundamentalist feminist stereotype has absolutely zero grounding in reality whatsoever. And if that wasn't enough, we're fortunate enough to have Mooncup, writing from the moon apparently, who says, "You don't want to see that bit. You just want to get your jollies to women being violently assaulted. You're pathetic. Rape isn't for entertainment, you classless worm. You have no taste, no class, no respect for women. I assume you're American." Well, Mooncup, you're absolutely right about one thing. Rape isn't entertainment, but cop dramas, fiction books, all sorts of things that may or may not contain rape are for entertainment. Shame you struck out with the rest of what you said, especially the last bit. Here's a clue for you. My accent. Gyandu and others, talking in Dreamwhip, writes, well, it doesn't really matter what they wrote as they waved the privilege canard, and I don't particularly want to get into the Four Yorkshiremen sketch. Privilege? My family were run out of power by Charles II and reduced to penury. Every morning we'd get up at the Tower of London and the King would make us lick Cromwell's severed head clean. Severed head? Luxury! We were lucky if we got to lick plague sores! It's a lot less fun than it actually sounds. If you think I'm being unfair writing them off so quickly, consider that they wrote me off at the picture of the swan or the title. And seriously, people on Dreamwhip pitching a fit? Between you and me, I would have thought that people writing on a blog network, which got its start from people needing a place to safely write their underage Harry Potter /fic, would be more sympathetic to the cause of free expression. I have been proven wrong. Lastly, a Mr. Etin from Grudge, New Jersey, has been much quoted as backup for the contention that I'm a terrible human being, citing work over 10 years ago on nymphology, hentacle, etc. They must really hate Oglaf then. What else was I doing about 10 years ago? What was it? 10 years. 10 years. What could it have been? I'm sure I was doing something. I'm sure this mediocre writer was doing something. What could it have been? 10 years ago, my. Oh, I don't know. You got any idea, Calliope? She doesn't talk much.